Templeton Board of Selectmen meeting to order of Wednesday, May 29th, 2019. We'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will begin with the ceremonial swearing in of our new board members.
Please raise your right hands and please state your names.
Michael James Curry.
Do you swear that you will faithfully and impartially, according to your best skill and judgment, perform the duties of the Board of Selectmen members of the town of Untitled?
I do.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good day, Teresa.
Thank you all for your service to our community.
Thank you, Diane.
Now we'll begin with the organizational actions. We'll begin with the nomination for chairman of the board.
I move to appoint Mike Courier as chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
Oh, yeah, I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
Can you make another motion? To vote on that one first.
Not while there's a motion on the floor. So we would just take a roll call vote. Jeff?
Yes.
Teresa?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll turn over the gavel to you, and you will run the following the rest of the meeting.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
All right, we've got a chair.
Diane, you didn't vote.
I'm sorry?
You didn't vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. I didn't.
Thank you.
I'm so sorry.
For the record.
Nice catch. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to the second appointment on the agenda. I will accept a motion for vice chairman for the Board of Selectmen.
I make a motion to appoint Diane Haley Brooks as vice chair.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, go through the vote. Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Next appointment is for clerk of the Board of Selectmen.
I nominate Julie Richards as clerk of the Board of Selectmen.
A second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a comment. Richard doesn't have an S on it. Just.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say
okay.
S? I'm sorry, Julie Richard.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for Julie Richard. And we'll go through a roll call vote. Jeff?
Oh, yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you. All right, we're going to move into the various committee assignments. First is that there is a select board representative for the capital planning committee. Last year it was Doug Morrison. And very good committee to sit on and steer the capital planning for the community. I'll entertain a motion.
Jeff, could I make a
No.
comment? I think that you would be very good on that committee. Is that something that you would
Well, I was gonna
entertain?
recommend Mr. Mike Curry, because he served on it last year. And he did an outstanding job as the advisory committee. I'd be more interested in being a liaison with the schools.
Yeah, I was too, because I wanted to stay on that.
I'd be interested in the capital planning committee.
Oh, that would be a good
one-year
one for you too, Julie.
term. That would help, and that would
Yeah.
lessen
I
your
agree.
burden as a new member of the board as well.
I agree.
You don't want to overwhelm yourself.
I couldn't agree with you more.
So I make a motion to elect Julie Richard, or appoint Julie Richard to the Capital Planning Committee for a one-year term.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion with a second. Any discussion on Julie Richard for Capital Planning
I just have
Committee?
a question,
Sure.
sorry. It ends June 30th?
Yeah, point of information, Mr. Chairman, if I might. Technically, these appointments all end on the June 30th of a given fiscal year. But given this is a new board and there are no carryovers, I would like to suggest that all of these be made through June 30th, 2020. And then we'll deal with the new board changeover next year, particularly if we don't have the same kind of majority change as we did this year.
Do we need, we haven't voted on any of
So-
those, so we don't, all we do, need to do is make the pen and ink change.
Yes.
Does anybody need to amend their motion?
I don't think that she added in. If you just want to restate your motion, and you can
I
just
make
follow
a-
the prompts there.
I make a motion to appoint Julie Richard to the Capital Planning Committee for a one-year term ending June 30th, 2020.
Thank you. You have a second.
Second.
Motion seconded for Julie Richard on the Capital Planning Committee. Any discussion? Hearing none. We'll go through the vote. Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you. Next is to the Templeton Elementary School Building Committee for a one-year term.
I would like to
Two.
stay on that committee.
Okay.
I make a motion to allow Diane to stay on that committee.
I also make a motion to have Jeff Bennett be on that committee.
All right,
Second?
do you want to do a motion at it one at a time, or, yeah, let's, so, the motion was to
I move to
allow, okay,
I
allow
move to
Diane to
appoint
remain.
Diane Haley Brooks to the Templeton Elementary School Building Committee for a one-year term ending June 30th, 2020.
Okay, we have a
Second.
motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Now you can go ahead.
I move to appoint Jeff Bennett to the Templeton Elementary School Building Committee for a one-year term ending June 30th, 2020.
Thank you. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Any discussion? Okay, on the motion for Jeff Bennett to the Templeton Elementary School Building Committee, how do you vote? Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. On the next appointment for the Templeton Developmental Center Reuse Committee, one-year term. Do I have, two positions, do I have a motion?
Let me just say, Mr. Chairman, that this is a group that was formed a number of years ago. It has been completely inactive. We have absolutely no clue as to where the state is heading on this. They've not even conducted the reuse study that has to be undertaken before they can move forward to dispose of any of the lands. So of all of the groups, this is probably right at the very bottom of urgency if
Okay.
folks aren't sure what it's all about and you're not prepared to make any appointments
All right.
this evening.
Do we want to
I will
table it?
volunteer. I was on this before.
I was gonna say.
whether anything's going on.
Unfortunately, it's been stale for 3 to 4 years now.
Okay,
There was a little activity 4 years ago, maybe.
Yeah,
What does it
And
entail?
after that, it's just to be on a committee to see where they're going with the lands or the
in
buildings.
the buildings.
They're on the state property. of
Do
the
they get a
former-
hold of you, or do you have to?
Sometimes they get a hold of us, or sometimes we try to revive it.
Mhm.
Is it something you would want to do with me?
I will. I'll
Okay.
try, it's right in my neighborhood.
Okay.
if you're
Me off?
if you're switching over to capital.
Sure.
So I make a motion to appoint Diane Haley Brooks to the Templeton Developmental Center Reuse Committee for a 1-year term ending June 30th, 2020.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Julie. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? You good? Are you all right with that?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's going to be, if we can revive it, just as a discussion item, if we
It's
can.
something I would discuss with Senator Goby.
Yeah,
She was on that, and I could discuss that with Representative
Whoops.
Whips,
Whips, yeah.
but I don't think it's gonna go too far.
Mr. Chairman, there has been some discussion, the state contacting my office about some of the buildings. They had looked at if we could do training burns out of any of them, so I contacted DEP, but there's really not.
Training burns?
Burn,
Yeah.
to actually burn them down.
Yeah,
I think they have already started demoing some of the old burns, but I'm not 100% sure. But there had been a little bit of communication.
yeah. Based on your,
I'll contact Senator
Yeah.
Goby.
Yeah, I know that they're looking to redo all the roads and everything up there. The
Mhm.
gentleman from the state
There's
that's
some-
in charge of that section of land
there's 2 agenda items.
is,
Okay.
they're
So we have to write
redoing the
that down.
roads.
Yeah.
They're looking to actually sell the barn down there, the horse barn, to the farmers. This is all just word of mouth of what he was talking to me about.
Yeah.
What is our town's stake in it, Diane? Do you know? What our town's stake in the
Well,
property
depending
is?
upon.
That's what we were trying to figure out.
Depending upon the long-term reuse plan, it can open up substantial acreage for development. Certainly, I don't think you're gonna get the Devon's types of reuses here. But any land that is developable and goes on the open market could be very important to your economic development,
I agree.
which then drives your new growth. So if you can get this thing moving again in some fashion, it's a long road. You can watch Belchertown, you can watch Rutland. But it can have some very positive impacts at the end of the day.
No doubt.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a question for the chief, if I could.
Sure.
Could you say who your contact was at that level?
If you said his name, I would remember it.
Okay.
He's the person that's in charge of actually the land.
The DEP. Okay.
For the state.
Phone call, email?
Dave Boyer?
No.
That's okay. I'll talk to you after.
Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Thank you.
I had this guy in the office
Sure.
someplace.
Okay, on the motion that has been seconded, is there any more discussion? So on Diane Haley Brooks' motion to the Templeton Developmental Center Reuse Committee, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. And for the second seat?
I make a motion to appoint Teresa Griffiths to the Templeton Developmental Center Reuse Committee for a term of 1 year ending June 2020.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Excuse me.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second for Terry. You don't mind me calling you Terry?
No,
She,
no.
all right, Terry or Teresa is okay. Any discussion? Okay, on the motion for Terry to the Templeton Developmental Center Reuse Committee, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Lastly, on the committee, 2 seats for the Templeton Senior Center Oversight Committee, both for a 1-year term. I'll entertain a motion for the first seat. Mm-hmm.
You want that?
Volunteer.
Okay.
I make a motion to nominate Jeff Bennett to the Senior Center Oversight Committee for a 1-year term ending in June of 2020.
Thank you, Terry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Julie. Any discussion? Senior Center Oversight Committee. Who was on it?
Doug,
Doug. Just one?
and I'm not sure who else.
Okay.
Holly, do you know that?
I think it was Julie. I think it was me, yeah.
Okay, any further discussion?
I personally don't think they meet often enough.
What's their frequency? Is it monthly?
Quarterly, maybe, at this point.
Hmm.
Do you know Doug?
Yeah, they didn't meet while didn't have a building permit.
Yeah, it was like a delayed, again, like a different committee. It was delayed as well for quite a while.
Okay, on the motion for Jeff Bennett to the Senior Center Oversight Committee, how do you vote? Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Do I have a motion for the second seat? Would you like to do it again? I move to appoint Julie Richard to the Senior Center Oversight Committee.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? On the motion for Julie Richard to the Senior Center Oversight Committee, how do you vote? Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, Julie. Okay, next item is liaisons. Mr. Administrator.
So the board had talked in the past about perhaps having,
Okay, Mr. Terenzini.
I'm sorry, having someone attend some of the other entities that you're involved with, or that impact town business. The Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO. Unfortunately, it meets midday, but it also controls the federal highway money that comes into the area. And having some FaceTime with them makes them know that we're serious about it. Monty Tech, yes, we have a rep. Do we want to have that rep just, ask them to come in here a little more frequently? Do you want to send someone there? So this is really sort of something new that's come up when we're going through the rules and procedures. And again, no high priority on it. But there may be organizations where you want someone to be able to say, and I am the liaison from the board. That you're not just attending the meeting, you're not just the face,
Yeah.
but you have a formal appointment. And an expectation that under board and staff member comments, you would report back and let your fellow
Right.
board members know what's going on.
Now, you mentioned specific organizations. Could we also arrange, or would you have a recommendation where we would align liaisons along functional, like education, our education liaison? So if we had an issue with Monty Tech or school committee or something like that,
I
think that could work
think
as
that,
well?
having some functional area would be good. I will say that it's a bit challenging, given our board meeting nights are Wednesdays, as is the school districts. But certainly the other night, Jeff and Diane attended the
Yep.
school committee meeting with me, and there are times, Jeff, I think, served with me, although he was from the advisory standpoint. I don't know if it was Julie, I think, perhaps when they did the district-wide reorganization.
Yeah.
So having a sense of, that's our education person, yeah, I think that makes some good sense.
Yeah.
I'll volunteer for the NRSD.
As a liaison. And Carter, do we need motions to go through the same way? Or
I
is- or
I
is
think
it
if you're gonna
just,
make, if you're gonna make it the district, or if you're gonna make it functional in education, I think having it in the record.
I could do
is a
Monty-Tech
good
as well
thing.
if you're gonna
Okay.
do it for education.
yeah, I think that's,
I
I
can do
mean, I
both.
like the functional, because we may not need any.
Is that what
bit-
you're
Yeah,
looking for?
basically the educational liaison for the Board of Selectmen. That's
Okay.
what I would refer to it
Okay.
as, unless we had a
So
smarter.
NRSD and Monty-Tech?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we need to make a motion?
I think it's just volunteers, I'm not 100% sure, Carter.
I think making the motion just gives it that much more
Okay.
of a little bit of import.
All right, I'll like to make a motion to nominate Diane Haley Brooks as the educational liaison for the select board, specifically for NRSD and Monty Tech.
So moved.
Discussion? Is there discussion? Is
Sure.
it for a certain
Yep.
term or just
Well, we don't have
indefinite?
we don't have a second yet, so.
So that's the first,
She
is so moved, and then.
She seconded, all right. Okay, so we have a motion and it's been seconded. Discussion, go ahead, Terry.
So is there a need for a term for you, or it's just indefinitely?
No, I would just remain the liaison. Do you want a term, Mr. Chairman?
No.
Okay.
I don't think we need a term.
That's fine.
I mean, at this point, I have 1 year left, so your term is
Right.
1 year.
And you know, if we were,
Sorry,
whether it's,
you can have 1 year.
whether it's a term
You're
limit,
getting a year,
expiration,
There you go.
or the select board policies have a mechanism to remove anyone, so.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
any further discussion on Diane as the educational liaison? On the motion to make Diane the educational liaison, how do you
Excuse
vote?
me.
Jeff,
Yes?
Terry,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, I appreciate that. Any other liaisons that we think that we may need?
There's the MRPC and the MPO.
That's the Metropolitan, I didn't catch the,
Regional Planning
Planning
Commission.
Commission.
oh, yes, okay.
We do have some
Metropolitan, it's not
appointments there, but I think that having
It's
a
Montechusett,
selectman
okay.
who's vested in that area would be useful to the board.
Jeff, would you entertain that?
What's that?
Would you entertain that liaison position? You got a lot.
I think they meet during the day. Do they meet during the day or do they meet in the evening?
The MRPC Commission itself tends to meet in the evening. The MPO unfortunately does tend to meet
During the
midday.
day.
And it would be for both.
If you went with the functional approach as you just used on
That would be
education,
both.
yes,
Okay.
that would make sense, planning and transportation.
Planning and transportation, okay. Does anyone have any expertise or any desire to be that liaison?
I can't take on any
Oh,
more.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I wish I could.
It's all you, Jeff.
What's that?
You got this covered? Want to be the liaison?
I don't think we have too many after that. Although
I think that's it.
transportation,
Is Jeff even able to meet during the day? Jeff, are you able to meet during the day with people?
I
yes and
can.
no.
If
I
it-
think that one,
I can if it's not weather-related in the wintertime. If it's snowing,
Right.
they
Yep.
probably don't meet anyway, but, the daytime is, no, it's not really a problem.
and
Uh,
actually, I think they meet like quarterly, Jeff, because I was on that 2 years ago. And
Yeah, I think
I
they
didn't
don't
take
meet,
a lot of time,
they don't
because
meet
they
on-
don't meet on a
lot,
regular basis,
basis.
just so you're aware of that.
uh,
I'm not sure the other one, meeting in the evening, I don't know how often they met.
but,
Well, I move to appoint Jeff Bennett as the MRPC and MPO liaison for the select board.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Anything, Jeff?
I think he was still thinking.
No?
He's
Oh,
gonna
I'm past
thank me
that.
in a minute.
I put my skates up.
Okay.
there's no further discussion on the motion for Jeff Bennett to be the MRPC and MPO liaison for the select board. How do you vote? Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes,
And I vote yes as well.
thank you, Jeff.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Terenzini, do you have any other recommendations?
I do not at this time.
Okay. Okay, let's move to the next agenda item, which is the calendar. Meeting schedule. That is, let's see. I think that is page 5.
For,
The Town of Templeton Board of Selectmen meeting schedule for fiscal year 2020.
4E?
Yep, 4E, correct, yep. So, yeah, it corresponds to the numbering on the draft motions.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I would just like to make a comment about it. I looked over this schedule. I personally would like to see the board have a month off in the summer. So I would request that you reschedule your business meetings for July 10th and July 24th. But that's, again, just in my opinion.
mhm.
Other than that, I like the schedule. The rest of it looked fine. It was reasonable.
That's the start of our fiscal year.
One challenge to that, if I might, Mr.
If there's
Chairman.
challenge, yeah. I don't know.
Concern, unless the board wishes to delegate this. We have until July 15 to make interdepartmental transfers. And they have to be completed by July 15. And the advisory committee has taken the position that they need to originate here.
Mhm.
I don't think we're going to need any or many, but I just want to put out there that that is a possible need for board action. So if you could maintain one meeting in July, and perhaps one in August, because we have a number of things that only the board can do. We in our office can't do liquor licenses, we can't do poll licenses.
Yep.
So going a full month without a board meeting would pose some challenge.
Yeah,
So,
But some communities do have just one meeting in July and one meeting in August.
Also, keeping in mind, with the school budget and the possible 1/12 and a joint town school committee meeting, in
right.
2013, when we did it, the joint meeting was in August 22nd. So we just have to be cognizant of that fact
Yeah.
of how many times we go back and forth with the school.
So,
As far as,
I think
Mr. Chairman.
all of that makes sense. What I appreciate that Julie has offered is basically for a planning for those who take time during the summer, whether they go on a cruise, go away with their family or otherwise. It gives some regularity or at least some planning ability to it. So if we can figure out a way to do both, I 100% agree with you that we've got some work to do coming up pretty shortly. But for planning purposes, if we can figure that out.
So,
I think if you struck, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, my apologies.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that the one business meeting would be more than enough in July, and I never suggested anything about not having meetings in August. I was looking for a break.
Yeah.
I'm gonna continue to state that, and I understand that by July 15th, interdepartmental transfers have to be figured out. So July 10th would be the better of the two if we had just one meeting in July. Just a thought. And then as far as August goes, yep, we'll have a joint meeting with the school committee, I'm well aware of that, but we also have 2 business meetings scheduled in August. Hopefully, we don't have to put a third, and we can invite them to one of our 2.
Yeah.
Normally, that doesn't occur, we end up with a third or a fourth in the month of August, which I don't care for, but we've done it. All I'm asking for is a little bit of a break in July. Just a thought. Been a long year.
What
It's
if
a long
you-
process.
What if you made your month from the 24th to the 14th, take those 2 dates off? That's kind of a month. That's
Well, we
bad.
can't because we
Oh,
need,
then
in
the
case
school
there's
committee.
interdepartmental transfers, we need to have.
What
Mr.
about
Terran-
voting
August
meeting.
14th?
Mr. Terenzini, is the first Monday a scheduled workshop that's not on here, or winter
Yeah.
workshop?
We
The
don't-
rules don't call for workshops in July and
August.
August.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no.
So if the schedule
Oh, I see it, I see, okay.
meets everyone's agreement, you could perhaps strike the meeting of July 24. That will give you a month from July 10 to August 14, allow us to deal with any transfers, and should position us to deal with school issues. And if need be,
Talking about
we can
canceling
always
one.
reach out and say we have something that's more urgent. But by striking the 24th, that should allow business to be conducted and achieve Ms. Richard.
At
goal.
least from a planning perspective, if we
Mhm.
need to meet again and we wind up having, if we can manage a quorum, then we can do that in a timely fashion, but I understand where you're coming from, Julie, because from that military background, they used to call it block leave, where everyone tried to take some time where someone wasn't trying to put out a fire. You like that, chief? So if we amend this schedule just to remove the 24th, so we have at least for some planning purposes, is that amendable to everybody? Does that sound good? Gives you enough time to schedule a cruise? Mr. Terenzino, what do you think? 24th, good?
Yeah, I think
Alright.
striking the 24th works just fine
Okay,
from our perspective.
all right.
May I ask,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, a question? So all these workshops in March, is this what covers all the budget meetings? Because I thought we were going to do one Saturday.
Right,
Um,
which I thought was very effective.
We
I
hadn't gotten the
appreciated it.
debrief comments from the advisory committee yet, or from this board. That's on the agenda for the,
Yeah, it's on the
for next week for that workshop. If you'd like us to go ahead and do that prior to those debriefs, we can certainly,
Yeah.
do that.
I agree, and Diane, if like, as we go through for planning purposes, because I like to think that this document basically makes it easier for the management, like you would.
Right, so I ended up going through and I put in all these meetings into my calendar and then we didn't even have them. So I would like to strike all the meetings in March and pick a Saturday.
I understand what you're saying.
So leave the
I
March,
second that.
the March workshop be
Thank you,
left
Julie.
open for now?
The
Date-
work,
Date to be
How
determined.
many you are a workshop kind of guy.
yeah, I'm
I'm
not a
also-
workshop kind of girl.
All year long.
I'm also the guy who sits in here at pre-town meeting
No.
with people for the very first time, reading the town meeting warrant and asking me a pile of questions that nobody got to me in the 2 months prior to that.
Yes, you are that same
So
man.
I'm both sides of that fence.
Yeah.
So we could have
That's an
March,
interesting thought, though, Carter. that-
March 7th, March 14th, March 21st, or March 28th, this was a Saturday.
Let me just suggest, if you want to pick
So we
that
could
date
take all
now.
these
March.
March dates out because I can say that that would be too much.
Let me just say, Mr. Chairman, that March 7 is problematic. You will just only have had your budget books
Right.
for less than a week.
Okay, so March 21st?
If you were to just do, if I might suggest, March 14,
Okay,
you have your budget book for almost 3 weeks at that point.
okay, March 14th.
With a snow date of the 21st.
Okay, snow date of March 21. That works for, does that work for everybody else?
Sure, I'm looking
March
that
4
far
yeah,
out.
March 14th works, but I also like the idea of having,
A snow date?
well, a snow date, but having some other date where we wind up addressing it for the reasons that Carter specified, is that we have to make sure that people are able to come in and ask questions, even if, some of our, his comment, very well received. I think that we just need to be able to not have one singular day where we're reviewing things in depth and able to ask questions, and especially in a joint manner, so we can actually kind of cross-reference some of those questions. So whether it's a snow date, but what I'm saying is a hard other date, not just if it snows on the 14th, but to meet some other evening, not an entire day,
So you want a day
Mr.
and one
Chairman.
evening?
an evening.
Mr. Chairman, can I suggest that we do a budget meeting on Saturday, March 14th,
Yes,
and then do another budget meeting on Monday of that same week, because it's still fresh.
On the
On March
16th?
16th, Monday, which is already on here.
On here, right?
And so the public has 2 different days that they can come in and ask questions while we're reviewing the
yep.
budget, correct?
That's a good idea, Julie.
And then the snow date for
The 21st.
either or would be the 21st. So it's all within a fiscal week, Sunday to Saturday. Fair enough?
I like it.
Okay, let's go for it. So moved.
Okay. I have a motion to accept.
Did you get all that, Holly?
Yeah, but we're keeping over
Yeah, I'll,
We're keeping March 16th.
I was writing as we were saying it, so I'll say it out loud so I have a motion to accept the meeting schedule for fiscal year 2020, less July 24th, and amending the workshops in March to only be the day of March 14th, the evening of March 16th, and allowing for the entire day of March 21st as a snow date.
So moved. Oh,
So I have a
second, sorry,
Yep,
second.
I have a second. Is
I'm
there any
sorry.
further discussion on the proposed meeting schedule? Go ahead.
We're getting rid of the rest of those?
Yep, that is
Oh,
correct.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yep.
Wasn't sure if I heard it.
And from my perspective, with extreme prejudice. Any further discussion? On the motion to accept the meeting schedule for the amended meeting schedule for fiscal year 2020, how do you vote, Jeff?
No.
Terry?
Yes,
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay. In your packets, you'll see that you had the meetings, the minutes of meeting that occurred on May 8th. I believe that was the last Board of Selectmen meeting.
Yes.
Okay. And as your board packet specified, that there's been previous legal opinion that you did not need to be at that meeting in order to vote in the minutes. So if you had time to read through the minutes, which I have had as well.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, May 8th, 2019, as written.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the meeting minutes of May 8th? Hearing no further discussion on the motion to accept the meeting minutes of May 8th, how do you vote, Jeff?
I abstain.
Terry?
yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Holly, we had one abstention.
Who was that?
Are we,
You
okay,
skipped,
yep,
you skipped over.
I did, okay,
Yes.
okay. I'm a little out of order, forgive me, it's my first time. At this time, is there any public comments? If there are any public comments, you're free to come up to the table, address, give your name, your street address, and the mic will be yours for no longer than 3 minutes. See, I've been reading my policy book. I see no public comments at this time. And we have no executive session minutes from the last meeting. We're gonna move into new business. Appointments and introductions. Mr. Terenzini?
We have none for you this evening, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we've done a lot of those already. Next agenda item is to set the date for our joint meetings, and I think that has to do with the failure to elect on the sewer commission.
It
And the
does.
CP And the community preservation.
Preservation, okay, both of them.
Yeah, both.
All right, I see the memo.
What's our next scheduled meeting? Mr. Chairman, may I?
Yep.
Mr. Terrazini, so is there a good business meeting that we should suggest as a date for this joint meeting that would work best for you?
Yeah, the 12th of June works well, I think, subject to the availability of the other commission members. The way this works is you normally issue just a request for letters of interest. Board members, those usually come in a day ahead of time, so we can get them out to you, have a small packet, hopefully a number of interested parties. You then meet in a joint session. Both bodies at the board are assembled in the front. Interview anyone that has applied. And you are free to make nominations on your own. They need not have applied. You may have spoken with somebody that was interested and they just didn't get a chance to write the letter. Or said, sure, I'll do it, but don't make me write a letter. And then you meet separately with the CPC, the entirety of that commission. So June 12 works from a business standpoint. We will have to reach out to those other bodies and make sure those people are available.
They're aware, I mean, it's not like it's a surprise or anything. They know that we're gonna be asking for a meeting date.
I believe they do.
Okay.
So
And it
Ms.
would make sense earlier rather than later, so. Go ahead. You were gonna
I'm
say
sorry,
something?
nope, I'm sorry.
All right, then that's both positions within the same evening.
It is, and I like the idea of June 12 on the sewer commission side, because they have to have two to have a quorum.
Correct.
And so if one of them has to be out of town for business or family event, they can't meet until we can get them that extra person.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move to request the sewer commissioners meet in joint session with the select board on June 12th to appoint a member to fill the vacancy in their body and to invite the appropriate members of the Community Preservation Committee to meet on the same date for the same purpose.
Okay, you have a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on those proposed, or that proposed date with that purpose? As Mr. Terenzini did point out, that's already on a scheduled day for us, so that shouldn't be any conflict for us. We just have to reach out and make sure that we can get enough people and enough notice. Any further discussion? On the aforementioned motion, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes?
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. June 12 it is. All right. Next agenda item is the memo concerning the vacation rollover. Holly?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the carryover of 1 week of vacation time of the assistant to the town administrator from FY19 to FY20 as we've done it with another employee prior to this board sitting here, I can't say that we can say no to another employee.
I second that motion.
Okay. On the motion to carry over that vacation time to the next fiscal year, that it has been seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Question, and I don't doubt Holly's ability to do this. The first time I was on the board, I worked with her, and I don't question her ability to do this. My question is Holly still handling the recording and paperwork for the MSBA reimbursement stuff?
She is.
It seems that would be more appropriate in the treasurer's office, and it would take a little pressure off her. I mean, she is in there by herself. She does a lot, like I said, I'm not questioning her ability. I know she's smart enough to do it, and she can handle the stuff, but if part of this is her workload and no backup, if she's off for a day, her stuff just keeps piling up. And if you could reduce the amount of stuff that she's responsible for, that could possibly help this situation out a little bit.
I mean, I don't know if that's what the issue is right now in terms of workload. It's basically
She-
you're saying it's what put her into this situation.
Well,
She
I
couldn't
think
take.
I think it's a contributor. Again, she doesn't have anyone to take her place when she goes out on vacation. So if the MSBA stuff comes in, it just piles up. I mean, she's doing an extra duty that, in my opinion, belongs in the office of the treasurer. It involves debt and stuff.
Yeah.
Again, I don't question her. I know she can do the stuff. I know that. It's just, it seems like it could be a reduction in her workload that
Yeah.
would maybe help this from repeating itself.
Well, I mean, as a discussion item, I mean, well, he's got his hand up. Hang on one sec. As a discussion item, I think it's good to talk through those things, but in terms of the efficacy of actually managing that aspect, I mean, I throw it to the town administrator. If she was overwhelmed or something, that he could actually look at that and if it came to this body as granting relief to try and reassign some of those duties, I hear you. But I mean, we're just voting on pushing her vacation time to the next year.
Again, to stop this from having to do
Yeah.
this, to keep people, so they can get their vacation in
Yep.
a reasonable amount of time.
Further discussion.
I was just gonna say, we are nearing the end of this process, but I'll talk with Holly when I'm back next week.
Okay.
Get a handle on how much time it's currently taking her now that we're 2/3 of the way
Yeah.
through. And then talk about how much time it would take to get the treasurer up to speed. And we'll see where that lands and
Okay.
report back to you
Old business.
at your next, in your next
That's
meeting
fine.
Because the
packet.
person
I'm
that
happy
can
with that.
always handle the work always gets more piled on them and more piled
Yep.
on them, because they do it.
Yeah.
And then you end up, and I just try to see if we could even
Yeah.
it out, so she's not in this position.
Yeah.
Would we have to talk with the person that would take the work on in place of Holly
I don't know,
as well?
I don't necessarily say that we would, Terry. I mean, we're the policymakers. I look to the town administrator. We look to the town administrator to try and, I understand what Jeff's saying, but in terms of managing his workforce to execute our policies, I would leave it up to him and to be able to say, I think that I have someone suitable who can do this, or I need another part-time person, because that person's got too much on their plate. I think we'll know more if Carter goes back and discusses that and says, workload-wise, this is what I found. Holly may have a different perspective to say, I couldn't take vacation time. I'm not, entirely convinced that that's what drove this issue in front of us right now.
It's all laid out in the letter.
Yeah,
I read it. Just wondering about if it's up to Mr. Terenzini to tell the person, you're gonna do this now in place of
Yep.
Holly. And that person wouldn't have a choice or would, or,
That is the role of the town administrator.
yeah.
It has nothing to do with this board at this time.
good.
Any further discussion? Hearing none on the motion to push the vacation hours for the assistant to the town administrator from 19 to 20. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes,
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, the next item, I've certainly done my homework on, is the award of the fire EMS study contract. Mr. Terenzine, I believe we had one respondent, or
We only had one
on-time
respondent.
respondent.
Yeah, one on-time respondent, and the way we did this was first a set of qualifications with a separate fee proposal sealed. We interviewed the respondent, Mr. Flynn from Phillipston, Adam and myself, satisfied our questions, then opened up the magic envelope. They were within budget. We did talk with them about perhaps adding a meeting or two, which is where we've suggested some authority perhaps for the additional 2,500, which we have budget for as well, should we need it.
Okay.
We were surprised we only got one, but
Yeah. Is this the first public forum that that this body is discussing this proposal?
the board authorized the application for the grant monies.
Okay.
We came to them and presented that. I think that may be the only discussion.
Okay.
If I recall
I
correctly.
bring it up for process wise, if, just to watch something go through your government, you know, the proposals went out. They've come back, and now we're at the point of making a decision so we can proceed with this study, which is funded by a grant.
It is $30,000 from the Community Compact Program.
Does anyone have any questions on, you know, that was the bulk of your packets?
I thought it was well-written, and they all seem well-qualified. And based on the work they've done for other communities, although
agree.
not local, they did a good job.
Yep.
And I looked them up online, and really, I know I feel that they'll do a good job for us and for Phillipston.
Agreed.
Some of the other communities that looked like, it was New York?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Onondaga Lake was a project and a half, up in Onondaga County right here. I just finished a book about something that went on there, and that was a serious situation up there.
So we would need a motion for the award of the contract.
Yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize the town administrator to enter into a contract with CGR for the fire EMS study on the towns of Templeton and Phillipston in the amount of $25,000 with authority to execute increases in the scope of work if deemed advisable and in our best interest, in an amount not to exceed an additional $2,500.
Thank you for the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion for the study has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, on the motion to accept the town administrator going into a contract with CGR for 25,000, is there an additional amount?
The 2,000.
And the 2,500 for the,
2,500,
yep.
not to exceed an additional 2,500.
Not to exceed an additional 2,500 with CGR for the study on the fire EMS study. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Based on what I read and the fact that it's a grant, yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Okay, next agenda item is the school district's certified budget and call of special town meeting. Mr. Terenzini?
So we have two documents for you. One is a set of these charts we're going to go through in a moment. And the second is a draft letter to the school district that town council and I will be at the end of this presentation, suggesting you consider acting upon. So which is which? Which is which right here?
There's a left and a right button.
Oh, right being forward?
Yeah.
I'm going to assume. Okay, so as we've been trying to keep you up to date through some emails, the other Thursday evening, we went to the school committee on the evening we thought they might adopt a budget, which was Tuesday, and they announced that they would have a special session on Thursday. Adam went, I went, Jeff kept company with us, Diane was there as well. They entered their executive session at 5:30. Sorry about that. And after exiting a 3-hour non-public, the chair announced that the school committee did not come to any decisions and that they would not meet again until June 4. They have 30 days to certify a new budget. They have 7 days to then actually physically get that to you. So they can take as many as 37 days from May 21st. That's when they had constructive notice that the budget had failed. Upon that new certification being received in our offices, you then have 45 days to actually hold the town meeting. We need on our end 18 days to actually have it. 14 days notice in the newspaper and posting by the constable and us getting it to the advisory committee. And then we need 4 days generally to get it into the Gardner News, to get it to the constable, make sure it's posted, and do all those things. But you can take as many as 45 days to get to the actual night of the town meeting. So we're prepared to recommend adjustments within the superintendent's dollars, be they the $235,000 shortfall we spoke of in mid-April when we gave the former board, and I think we sent you all a link to that memo, or the $247K. We have no clue as of today where that number's gonna land. I can tell you we have a plan prepared to put forward
We were
around
hoping
those
they were gonna give
numbers.
us a number the other night.
Our hope had been to get to a budget prior to July 1 to avoid this 1/12 budget issue. And please remember, it's not just this year's budget divided by 12. It's this year's budget divided by 12 plus, or minus, but plus whatever adjustments the commissioner feels are necessary for, extraordinary circumstances. A new collective bargaining agreement, higher insurance rates, opening a new building, whatever they put forward, the commissioner then has to take that into consideration. So we are guided by a couple of things. One is we're not prepared to unjustifiably change any of the revenue estimates. I mean, if House budget comes in 1 and you want to raise something 10,000 or something to avoid that cut, okay, it's outside the principles, but that's your decision and we'll talk that through with you. The other thing is we're all, I think, agreed that there'd be no use of one-time revenues.
I agree.
And even if you had an appetite for that, please remember that on June 30th, your free cash certification goes poof in the dead of the night, and you have no free cash again until the fall when it's recertified. So cuts are going to be our only option. We have one accounting move we can make that's within the financial management principles that the prior board adopted, but it will be cuts. I will just let you know that we will, in making some recommendations to you, be looking to not backslide on the administration and finance teams that I think have moved us so far. And from our perspective, we will not be looking to revisit what we considered settled matters, dispatch and ALS. Will there come a day when maybe you have to visit again? Yeah, but in terms of what I'm gonna put forward, I just want you to know that will not be on our list. This is, Jeff and the chairman will recognize this. This is, will look very similar to a bit of a quick and dirty exercise we did with the advisory committee. So we don't know what the number is, but just for the outlandishness of it all, to show people what's involved, if we had to cut the amount that was on the override, well, you can't take it out of all the budgets. That would be a 5% across the board cut. Because first you have to pay that new ambulance lease, you have to. So now we have a new number to cut from, 5.53%. But you can't cut any money from Monty Tech. So now we have a lower number and you have to cut 5.7%. Well, you can't cut the regional school district itself. So now you have to cut 10% of the budget. You can't cut the money out of debt. The bankers want to be paid.
Yep.
So now you have to cut 14% out. There's a large measure of the insurance and benefits, Worcester Regional Retirement System, workers' comp, your retiree benefits, the benefits that you pay on behalf of the light, water, and sewer department that you get reimbursed for. So now you have to cut 17% if you were trying to do an across-the-board exercise.
Yep.
You can't cut the snow and ice budget.
Yeah, it's the minimum.
Maybe we tweak it, at 2,500 or 5,000 when we come back to you. So now you have to cut 17.5%. You can't cut the veterans budget. Again, might we tweak it, 2,500, give, take, don't know, but it's 18%. Then you have to mail out your tax bills. You have to have elections. You have to do your audits. There's a few things you have to do. So at the end of the day, if one looks at an across-the-board cut, which makes no sense, you have to cut almost 20% of your town budget if that number comes back in as it was. The other thing that I would ask you to bear in mind is as you think about suggested cuts or we go through them, some of the cuts might be gross cuts, but they don't do anything. So if you cut the health insurance budget, but you think you're cutting the line item that was for the sewer department, that doesn't save you anything because you lose the revenues on the other side. So, even before we get to numbers, the basic issue for the board really is whether you want to be cooperative and collaborative or confrontational and cantankerous. I think you all know which side I'd fall on, but that's down the road. So to better inform that view, the town council and I are suggesting that you send a letter to the NRSD relative, and I'll walk you through that letter in a moment, to the lease at the Templeton Center Elementary School. There's no lease that we know of on the old building, and if there was a lease, it's been voided when it was demolished. We'll be provided to give you, prepared to give you an update at your workshop next night. We're most hopeful that the committee will come out of its session on June 4 and give us some numbers to work at, because quite frankly, we don't even have a sense of where to begin until we get that number. And we would like to ask you, and I understand it's an extra meeting, and I apologize, but there are a number.
Apology, Carter.
There are a number of options that it is best that town council and I both brief you on, and we would like to bring him out on June 19th. He can come out on June 12th, if you like that better, and we'll just work that into the agenda somehow and make sure that we hold anything we can off the agenda to make sure there's enough time for that. So that's where we are as of this moment. Now, the letter that we are suggesting you send, it goes to the fact that the district agreement calls for you to lease certain buildings to the district. It then calls for there to be an actual lease, which the select board determines the terms of in conjunction with the district. So this letter simply states the section of the agreement that provides for the lease, states that we believe the complete demolition of the former school structure effectively terminated that lease, in case they have a lease somewhere and we don't know. I'm not saying there isn't one, we
physical
just
lease.
can't
Yeah.
physically find it.
It's been a year.
Sorry about that. And it requests that we be sent a copy of a draft for the new lease, putting the burden upon them to draft that. And it raises the issue once again that those who were on the prior board may remember from a joint meeting that we had with Phillipston, where we asked the district to reopen the district agreement. And we spoke particularly to the fact that the district agreement calls for making the towns responsible for any capital repair in excess of $5,000. We thought that was a very low number, particularly if it were to hit mid-year, and that they had more flexibility in their budget to handle, let's say, a $25,000 hit, or whatever the new number is, than we did. So there is, my apologies, there is a spelling error in the Templeton
I see it.
there.
Thanks, Dan.
But this is our suggestion, not a confrontational, you can't open the building, nothing too heavy-handed. Council said he actually was surprised at how gentle the draft was. But we think it sends the notice and begins the discussion, which we could then follow up over the next couple of weeks. So Jeff was at the meeting, Julia was at the meeting, they may have some different insights, observations
Yeah.
from their,
Insights is what I need
point.
right now.
but that's the best I can give you tonight as to where we're at and how we suggest you proceed.
So when should we come in and sign that letter tomorrow?
If the board approves it, now that we know who the board officers are, we certainly didn't want to prejudge any of that. We'll fix the typo. Is it dated for tomorrow? It is dated tomorrow. We would get the proper names in the proper order, and then, yes, we would ask you to all try to get in here over the next day or two, or over the weekend, and we'd get it off to them by Monday morning,
Okay, thank you.
along with any changes you might like to the draft.
So, Mr. Chairman, I like the draft of the letter. I would definitely approve it. I would also agree with town council that we were a little soft in our letter as well. I think it could have been a little more
Yeah.
stern. However, it is what it is. So I would recommend that we send the letter with the few typo changes made.
Yeah. I might not be grasping why it could be inflammatory or otherwise. I guess I'm not following. It's basically saying that our old lease is done. It's no more, kaput. We want a new lease. Here are the,
It's not inflammatory.
No.
Town council said he thought
It
he
could
was
have been more
surprised that it
inflammatory,
wasn't.
okay.
Because we've had some issues with them, and now that it's not, and it's good.
Because it's getting us, getting them to
We
the
need to open up that door now.
the dialogue.
He was surprised it was as gentle as it was, because I am known for
You're a kitty
sometimes
cat?
A
being
little
a
harsh.
little more direct.
Which has done the town well.
Jeff, do you have any thoughts?
The letter is a little too mild, but I vote to send it as it is and go start someplace.
Yeah.
And see what happens if they do anything on the 4th.
can I have a little clarity? So this is to the superintendent, to,
To the chairman
School
of the
committee
school
chair.
committee.
and so that they can come up with a budget, basically, or?
No, they have to,
Lease.
the lease. We need a lease.
Alright, I'm not following.
If the school district doesn't own the school, we own the school.
Okay,
We had, we leased the old school to them. The old school was demolished. That lease is done, as Carter had said, or Mr. Terenzini had said. So this is basically saying we want to enter into a new lease. Here's some of the conditions, but asking for their draft. So,
so we're initiating it, not
Yeah.
them?
yes?
Well, we have to. It's our town building.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there, so you wanna
Yeah,
get this?
just name and address.
Gail Noel, Winchester Street. So is your intention is to get to them, this letter to them by the June 4th meeting,
It would be.
would be? And does it have a date on which you would like something back?
I think there was,
The intention was for
Yeah.
them to make a decision at their meeting, and then we could hear from them the following evening at our meeting.
Right.
but specifically, no, and I'll read the last part. We will be keenly interested in your draft provisions with respect to the same, given there has been no follow-up discussion on our request on the specific item during the joint Templeton-Phillipston meeting of some time ago.
But you would want this to be in effect prior to the beginning of the school year.
The lease,
It has
like
to
a
be.
signed lease?
Yes.
Our request in the letter as drafted is that they would send us the draft lease at their first convenience and prior to occupancy.
So that's where the gentleness comes in, as opposed to giving them specific time?
It is where the gentleness comes in.
Some of it.
For the first go-around.
It's a delicate balance. You have things that are of keen interest to you. You want to work with them. I think many of them are quite aware of the size of the vote in opposition, and I think that some of them want to work with you. So I think you want to send your first signal in a way that puts forth your position, but that it not be inflammatory and draw back a, who the heck are you, we're gonna vote this way instead because we're mad kind of thing. So, I understand what Jeff is saying, but remember, they haven't taken their vote on the budget yet.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, this draft is our suggestion, we propose, and it's the board that disposes, how it wants to proceed.
Yes, sir.
John Thomas, Cross Road. I'm not
My neighbor.
sure,
My neighbor.
Howdy, neighbor.
I'm not sure how the lease agreement with the school changes the financial picture. If we were to agree to $1, it would have no effect. If we were to agree to $100,000 a year, the school would have to come up with the $100,000. There's no free money, so the town can say, oh, great, we have a $100,000 lease. But the school says, oh, now I have to pay $100,000,
Which
so
we
what
give
am I
them.
gonna do with my budget? So we're all in this together, and I don't understand where the win is, whether we call it $1 or $100,000. And I guess I look at, we just built a school for how many millions of dollars? And now we're saying to the school committee, give us a lease. If we built this building and we put this money into it, we should have given them a lease and determined this before the 11th hour, in my opinion.
We tried.
We attempted that.
We tried.
As our letter states very firmly, to me, not firm enough, we already did that. We had a regional district meeting with that committee, and it wasn't very pleasant, to
Well,
say
I
the
don't
least.
have the letter, but I
Right.
guess I just assumed
But
that
to say the
if-
least, and the lease was brought up at that meeting. And
We've gotten no response.
I guess maybe fell on deaf ears. I'm not really sure, in my opinion, but
I guess in normal business, you expect the person with the ownership to present a lease, not the person who is leasing it.
Yeah,
You could.
John, I think, I completely understand, because I think understanding it, I'm in the same camp to say, clear language, just tell us what you want. But why I brought this slide back up is because I have noticed at least a pattern of the first number was 235 when we had to start our contingency planning budget-wise, and then the second number of 247. I don't know what that number is going to be. Carter and this board we don't know
No
what that
clue.
number, they haven't given it to us yet. And we're walking towards the new fiscal year kind of quickly at this point. So with this letter, and I know you don't have a copy of it, but we tried to read it out as verbatim as we could. What I'm understanding this letter does, a little bit in a passive-aggressive way, we need to get to the table, whether we're talking about a lease or we're talking about what is your number, so we know what we need to start cutting if we need to cut. It is regrettable that we're in this situation, but here we are, and we're going to have to get through it. I don't think it's going to be very pretty, but at least the right people got to come to the table and figure out what that number is going to be. They're going to have to give a little. We're going to have to give a little. You know, if this winds up, you know, it's a balloon. We keep squeezing different sides of the balloon, and with this letter, we're squeezing the balloon a little bit harder to say, hey, we need the number, or else we're not gonna get anywhere, and we're gonna be in the new budget year, and we're gonna be marching down the 112.
So with respect to Mr. Thomas, how do we create a win-win situation?
Well, I think, more to Julie's point, we've been trying that. This is a new board. This is the first time that we're meeting together, and we're understanding each of the different personalities and different traits that we have. I think his language was clear. John was, why aren't you just asking for it? Well, we have, through our town administrator and various people that have gone to the meetings. Jeff, Diane went to the meeting. We can't play around trying to squirrel out numbers. It would be right to 100% clear text, clear language. What is your number? Okay, now we're gonna work. Like a ping pong ball going across the table. But it hasn't worked like that. So is this a tool to get that going? Yes, because it's language that needs to happen.
Can I ask what the amount was that was presented to the school committee? For the lease?
Go ahead.
If I may, the lease issue is not an income issue. 'Cause we
No.
pay 85%.
not
It's
an
a
income issue.
gentle reminder that they cannot occupy the building until a lease has been
I understand.
executed.
Regardless of who creates the lease, that's not gonna matter. But the money-wise, we need a number from them, which we have not been able to get a firm number since since the vote. So if they can't give us a number, we don't know what we can cut or where we can cut. But Carter did a great presentation. You're looking at cutting 18% of every department in the town of Templeton to support a school. That's what it's gonna come down to. If we don't get a firm number for them, so we can sit down with our numbers and say, where do we cut? How do we keep the public safe? How do we not touch the important pieces that we just rebuilt in the last 5 years that I've sat in this chair? And we can't get a number. This is a gentle reminder, I agree. Someone needs to come up with a lease, doesn't matter who it is, but you can't occupy this building, which belongs to the town of Templeton, unless you have a lease in place. It's a gentle reminder.
Mr. Bennett.
Yes, just to your point, because I think some things are apples and oranges here. According to the available copy of the last time the regional school agreement was addressed, the part in it that deals with leases, it says, no rental shall be charged to the district by any of the member towns. So it's more of a paperwork thing. You occupy the building. With regards to money, if there's any problem or repair that's over $5,000, it's the responsibility of the town. But on the flip side, insurance and upkeep and all of that, and of course, we pay for it in a roundabout way in the assessment, but they're responsible for taking care of that. But as far as like a dollar figure for the lease, there's not a dollar, the dollar figure being
If I
talked about
misspoke,
is
I
the budget,
apologize.
is
I'm
the
sorry.
school
I
budget.
didn't understand that.
Yeah,
I thought
no,
it
just
was
so-
looking for.
Apparently I
But I
didn't.
thought you
Lease
might be
payment.
thinking there was,
No lease.
you're gonna rent it for a year for 100
yeah,
or
no,
1,000 or
there's-
what, but there's not, that's not a figure. The figure is the town's assessment, the bill
Right.
to operate the school. That's the figure that we are trying to get since it was turned down at town meeting. And
But
that's
the,
where,
you know, the major business of the town, so we had the town meeting, we certified that budget, you know, contingent on an override, the override didn't pass. For the school to be the only people, the only agents out of that to feel the brunt of that override not passing, that's a misnomer. The town's going to feel it just as much, and we need their number to figure out how we're both going to proceed. Go ahead, John.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I was not understanding.
It was probably my fault.
And I understand how it's very unstable, we don't know whether the number is 988 or 253 or whatever. But would the board consider a town override? And I understand we voted down 988 overwhelmingly, but depending upon how the school committee certifies a budget and how town meeting goes or district meeting, we could be looking at a cut to the town budget. And I think that's part of the problem we've experienced over many years is it's hard to sustain a town on 2.5% because healthcare goes up more.
Yeah.
The school budget goes up more. Part of that is special ed mandates, lack of state aid, transportation, et cetera. But if we're only at 2.5%, we're not gaining, we're losing. And our budget this year does not include enough money to fix the roads. I think that's pretty obvious. It probably could use more money for the police department. But if we could come somewhere between 0 and 988, I think people would be reluctantly agreeable to say, we need to keep the town moving somewhat forward. And
I don't
if
think
the
you
school
can.
budget takes
Is that your
whatever chunk it is, and the town takes the hit on everything else, we're taking a giant step backwards. And then next year, we're deeper in the hole when we start again. And we've done that for many years, and we've used free cash for many years. And I think that's why we keep banging our head against the ceiling.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for
Go ahead,
that.
Julie.
I make a motion that we send this letter as of Monday and we all sign it and we get it over to the school committee as soon as possible.
I
And we
second that.
hope that they understand where we're coming from,
Second.
because we can't just go to the bank because the override didn't pass. That's not how Templeton runs.
I
I'm
have-
sorry.
I have a motion for the letter with a second. Any further discussion? On the motion to the draft memorandum to the chair of the school district on the lease of the Templeton Center Elementary School that has been seconded. How do you vote, Jeff?
yes,
Terry?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. 1954.
To recuse myself.
Next,
now. Does that mean, do I need to?
Yep, we have,
You just don't vote. You don't have to. vote,
right.
but you don't vote.
thanks for that. Yep, next agenda item is a 21D disclosure form. Mr. Terenzini?
A newly elected member of your board who has served a number of years as your paid swimming director and a member of some other positions, has conflicts under Mass General Law, Chapter 268A. We consulted with town council on her behalf, and they advised that she file, which she did complete tonight, several disclosure forms, which this body would need to indicate that it's received the disclosure, and that you've recognized the activities that they would engage in, that you've approved that exemption as a special municipal employee, and that she did not vote on the matter. The board would sign it because she is a member of the board, and then I would countersign it as the appointing authority, and then we would move forward from here. We have some other matters on your June 5th workshop that might affect next year, but that's down the line. And this is town council's advice as to how to deal with this. And I would point out that she held the position of swim instructor prior to election to this board, so it's nothing that we did post that election. There's no quid pro quo, anything like that that's happened here.
So these papers that are in our packet are what she
The
signed?
first three are really what she signs.
20D.
What you actually act upon is this approval of exemption, which is the fourth page in that packet of materials.
Okay.
The board votes, and then the chairman would sign, and I would countersign as the appointing authority.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move to acknowledge, accept, and sign the 21D disclosure forms relative to Ms. Terry Griffiths, a member of this body, being the director of the Templeton Swim Program.
I have a motion. Just a quick note on the motion, is it 21D or is it 20D? Yeah,
21D.
when I look at the actual paperwork, it looks like it's under Mass General Laws.
Yeah, it says 20D.
268
it's-
alpha,
it's-
subsection 20 delta.
20D is what I'm seeing, Mr. Chairman, our apologies.
Sorry,
Okay.
my apologies.
So just,
20D.
yep,
Amended.
amended motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
On the motion for Terry's 20 delta, is there any discussion, any questions? Everyone's clear? She would be able to continue as the swim director, being given the stipend, and she would just recuse herself.
She
If
would
there-
recuse herself from any matter dealing with that. And then, if, as we approach the new budget year, if it is her intent to continue on with that, she would have to recuse herself from any votes on that. And the payroll will remind her when there's a payroll warrant comes through that she should not
Okay.
sign, or that if there are expense items on an accounts payable warrant, that she should not sign.
Okay, and the entire budget, or just the Parks and Recreation budget?
Just the Parks and Recreation budget.
I'm very happy with that, yep. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? On the motion to sign the 20 delta for Terry Griffiths, how do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Abstain?
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
That's an invalid, it's an
Yeah,
invalid vote.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, that's an invalid vote. Miss Terry should have recused herself from the table.
Recuse myself.
Like, got up and walked out, or
Yes.
not vote at all?
No abstention, no, if you
Okay.
should have, I'm sure this may not have
Yeah.
explained.
Yeah, do we,
In the
Validate
future,
the
in-
last
You
vote?
can't
When it was
abstain.
on my
in the future, we do suggest that people, and
Recuse
thank you for that,
vote.
recuse themselves before the subject matter is brought up, We do advise that they physically leave the table, even leave the room in some
It's
communities.
advised for people to do that.
We advise
but
that. That's up to
It's
them.
not the law to
Um,
leave the room,
Okay, so you,
because I never did, and I've signed 3 of them.
but she
but
can't abstain, she
we do
can't vote at all.
recommend that you
I agree with that, but-
amend the vote to show that she recused herself as opposed to abstaining.
Sure.
Okay,
I've seen it both
Thanks,
ways.
Diane.
I saw Doug get out, up, and,
well,
walk out
either
before.
not get up, but that's an invalid vote to abstain.
Okay,
Okay,
and what's the recommendation to show, to let the
Recuse.
record
To
show
amend.
that she's recused herself?
Yeah.
Terry, you good with that?
yes.
Okay, she's gonna change that, your
wrong
vote
word.
to
It's
recused.
recused.
Recuse.
Okay,
We can go on a cruise.
all right. Thank you. It's, growing pains.
Well, I know, she's new, so.
Yep.
And
Me too.
May I interject
You
that I
too.
need to recuse myself from the next point two? I can leave the room if you want, but I am a
you don't have
member
to.
of the
You
fishing
don't,
game.
that's,
No,
I can stay.
yeah, you
yeah.
just can't vote.
Okay.
You're a member?
Yes, I am.
You don't even have to state, you have to, I can't speak with that. You don't have to state why, you just have to state that you're accusing yourself. We don't have to know why.
Okay,
That's your own personal business.
okay.
Okay, next item is the one-day liquor license and entertainment license for the Templeton Fish and Game. Everyone's looking at page 7.8 or 7.
I think that's G.
You're right.
I think it's
7,
G.
7.g.
It looks like an 8.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe the manager is gonna be here this evening. Everything's in order. We can just vote it pending that they have their certificate of insurance on file.
Yeah, I think I saw that they've already had business earlier this year for licenses,
Mhm.
Templeton Fish and Game, so I know that they've already gone through a few of the questions that the previous board had, so I'm perfectly okay proceeding. In the future, especially if they know if it's a new board, or if they wanna come in and make sure that they're saying hi, I normally come to the board, we're new, I would love to see the people, I wish I had, I've not been out there, so when they come in and say, hey, you do know it's a new board, it's not, John and crew, it's now Mike and crew. So the dates are for liquor and entertainment, two separate requests. The 8th, the 22nd, and the 8th of June, the 22nd of June, and September 7th,
And that's.
with
that
the
third-
hours specified.
That third date, September 7th, was added on.
Yep, I see all of them on both licenses. Fairly normal. I'll entertain a motion to approve these. And when they go through these licenses, Holly, they, there's police, is there any other involvement with any other departments? I know when we talk about the town common, we like a parking plan with the police or otherwise. These are just on-site. Are they copies filed with the police department? That way they know that there's something going on, alcohol or entertainment related? So if they get noise
Generally-
complaints?
Generally, I'll send the police chief a copy of it, just see
Okay.
if he has any issues.
Yep.
I hadn't prior to tonight, but I'll send him a copy of this.
It just seems prudent that way if they wind up, they know what's going on, that way they do it whether they're on a drive-by situation or anything like that.
They also they do coverage of that as well, but by them, I believe.
Yep,
So they're aware of it.
just so they're aware that what's going
Because even
on.
the club itself will contact police
Okay.
and fire when they have a big event.
That, we get CC to the fire department as well.
Sure.
We're in charge of capacity.
Uh-huh,
That way, if there's a need to, I get to reach out prior to
yeah,
the event to make sure that they're
yeah,
all set, crowd manager rules or anything like that, just
right.
so they don't.
Any
run
kind of
into
public
issues.
safety, just like, hey, licenses were issued for whatever. I think that's not a bad thing to do. even if, you know, I know the minutes come out from these meetings, you know, maybe like an FYI for certain, like, public safety departments, just, hey, heads up, a couple licenses were issued during this meeting, that way public, safety heads are aware.
These events.
Okay, I've got,
I make a motion to approve the liquor and entertainment licenses for Templeton Fish and Game on Saturday, June 8th, Saturday, June 22nd, and Saturday, September 7th, all of 2019.
thank you for the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I have a second. Any further discussion on these two entertainment and liquor licenses? Hearing none on the motion for Templeton Fish and Games entertainment and liquor approval. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Accused.
Julie?
Liquors.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes.
Oh, subject to the, I'm sorry.
Do you need to amend that?
Yes, and we need to make sure their certificate of insurance is on file.
Yeah. I mean, I made my
I
vote
forgot
based
that,
on
Holly.
Holly.
Okay, so as long as we were all aware of that, correct?
She did mention it, yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I forgot to say it.
Okay, thank you.
Just an added note.
Yep. And I had made the issue that they had already had some
Yeah,
approved this
we
year.
had done licenses
Yeah.
for them before, so
Okay,
I'm not really amending it, I'm just making a note.
all right. Time-wise, how are we doing, Mr. Terenzini?
Excellent.
Excellent, good. All right, that finishes new business, and we're gonna move on to old business. Yeah, Item 8A, Trestle Bridge, and is this all one line item?
It is.
Okay,
We received, unfortunately, not till late this afternoon, the final settlement agreement as worked out between the two councils. If I can, in April of this year, the board held a show cause hearing to determine whether or not alcohol had been sold to an intoxicated person. This agreement tracks a series of stipulations that had been tentatively agreed to at that board meeting, and we committed to you that we would bring the full agreement back for this board to see in its entirety. So the item 1 is the license holder is acknowledging that there were sufficient facts for the board to have found that the establishment did violate the requirements of its license. Item 2, the establishment will close for 2 Fridays in June. Now, the original agreement was in May or June, but given we're at May 29, the agreement was truncated
yeah,
to be simply for June. It does retain that the dates would be determined by mutual agreement. My understanding is that they are tentatively scheduled for June 7 and June 28. The establishment will immediately designate the lower entry door as an emergency exit. Right now, people can park in the lower lot and come through that door.
Yep.
The point of concern for the chief was that that was a access point that was not well controlled.
Yep.
And so this would have to become an exit only
Chief Bennett?
door. This
or
was
Chief
Chief
Dickey?
Bennett. This was
Okay.
Chief Bennett. The next point, and I don't, this may have been raised by Chief Dickey, if not by him, by Chief Bennett. Certainly it was of concern from Fire Code and Building Commissioner. We're requiring that within 30 days of the agreement, Mr. Arsenault meet with the Fire Chief and the Building Commissioner to talk about the viability of alarming that door in such a manner that if it is opened other than momentarily as an exit, that it's alarmed, and so that the establishment knows
Yeah.
someone's using it in a manner that was clearly not
Yeah.
intended.
And the answer could be yes or no, or yes with whatever
Yes,
provisions.
yeah, I mean, whatever they come
Okay,
back and
Just to take a look and see
come
what
to some
they got.
agreement, you know, what would
I
it cost?
can't imagine that there wouldn't be equipment where they
What's the
couldn't do that.
viability of it? Item 5, upon the execution of the agreement on Friday and Saturday evenings, the establishment has to position a staff member at the entry door. The chief and the license holder had discussed an alternative method, and so this does provide that alternatively, based upon discussions and approval by the chief of police, and he'd been the one who'd really been pushing for the doorman, an alternative method.
Mr. Chairman.
That just, go ahead, keep going.
Oh, okay.
I have a question on 5.
Yeah,
You
I'll
want me to
stop.
wait till the end? Okay.
No, I'm just at the end of 5. He hasn't finished.
It requires that all current staff become TIPS certified no later than,
Wait, hang on, did you move
Yeah,
on?
we jumped.
Yeah, can
Item
she,
6.
Julie has a question about item 5.
my apologies, certainly.
No, I thought you were gonna read the whole
Yep.
thing. Go ahead.
Can you clarify this, because it was my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, upon the execution of this agreement, should it state on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday evenings from 9 PM till close?
The agreement was Friday and Saturday.
That was
And
within,
that's firm
that was,
factual?
yeah,
Yes.
that was within the
Because
hearing,
the discussion
right?
was there during that hearing.
I
And I
recall the hearing
thought-
as Friday and Saturday.
Okay.
The end result of the
Thank you for
hearing
that.
was Friday
Okay.
and Saturday. Those were the
Great.
marching orders to council.
Yep. Yep, so go
Now,
ahead.
that's not to say that in approving, the police chief approving an alternate method, he might stray into the territory of the, sure, we'll let you do that, but we'd like to see it expanded, and I could, to Thursday night as well, and I can inform the chief
I
that
know there
that's.
was a lengthy discussion, I was
Yeah,
just
I
wanting
mean, certainly-
clarification on which nights actually came out of that
If
contract.
that's the board's wish in approving an alternative system, I can inform the chief the board would like him to explore the viability of expanding.
Yeah, to
to
me,
Thursday evening.
and I think this is the kind of where you're coming from, Julie, certainly not speaking for you, but it's about risk reduction.
Sure.
If they identify something that actually is a little bit easier to achieve with the same effect,
As this
it becomes a further risk reduction. So if it's nothing to Mr. Arsenault to apply that, and it's just as easy to apply it on Thursday night, and he's able to further buy down his risk, then absolutely, I would,
We can
yeah.
explore that.
As this reads, it's at any other time, they don't have to card anyone, or as this reads, any other time underage?
as, so if this is a
like
bouncer at the
breakfast,
door,
Yeah,
I mean, they card,
yeah.
I'm assuming that they card anytime that they are giving alcohol. Well, yeah.
That's why it's in place now. that they
The-
can-
These were the
their
evenings
bartenders.
where business activity was such
I was gonna
that the
say.
chief felt it was warranted. To
Okay.
do it on a Monday or a Tuesday night when business is down here was probably
I
impose
would
a
appreciate
pressure.
if the police could,
We'll explore the
chief could
Thursday, sure,
explore Thursday.
Yep.
Okay.
happy to.
All right, Mr.
Um,
Terenzini, item 6.
Item 6 is that all staff must be TIPS, all current staff must be TIPS certified by September 1, 2019. All future staff will have to be TIPS certified prior to serving alcohol. So if they're the bar back, the cleaning person, no. But if they are serving alcohol, they can't even come in and have 30 days to get their TIPS certification. They have to be TIPS certified at the time of serving alcohol.
Okay.
The other thing is that I'm sorry, I didn't,
No.
they
I
have
did
to
have a
keep a
question.
log
How about the tips?
and a copy of all the TIPS certification
I
that we
agree.
can request at any time.
At the time that this happened, the bartender had let her license expire. You don't think that there should be a paragraph in there about not letting them elapse?
Apparently it was expired in Mass, but not in New Hampshire.
We're in Mass.
Yeah.
That's like irrelevant to me, but I don't think that they should let them lapse.
I think we can
Can
do
we
that with,
solidify that a little
we-
bit?
I think we can do that with an initialed addendum, certainly, so that they'll become and maintain TIPS certification.
Right. Just something.
Sure, we can do that on a markup that everyone
Well,
put initial.
So Diane, I understand what you're saying here, but for wordsmithing wise, the establishment will ensure that all current staff whose duties include serving alcohol will become TIPS certified on or before September 1, that's all. The establishment will ensure that all future staff whose duties include serving alcohol will become TIPS certified. My reason for reading through this, if being TIPS certified, if they are not, if it's expired, you're looking for language to specify,
Maintaining it.
okay. Because
It
this
was-
one's
it had
saying that you
expired.
must, if it's expired, then you aren't, and you're in violation of this.
You're a current.
But they allowed it to happen.
That would become
I'm a wordsmith.
Yeah.
that would become a violation, and just so you understand how this would work, you can ask them in November to bring their log, to bring a payroll. You can walk in any time and ask for it, and any time that they're in violation of this agreement, that's a liquor license violation in and of itself. So if they do something, the chief gets to request a shall cause hearing
Yeah.
on the new matter, plus any violation that's in
Mhm.
this.
So it's like you're saying underline and specify, so there's no margin of error. When I read this, it's you're TIPS certified. If you're not, you're in violation. I'm also looking that he's also signed it. This was given as a signed document. All we need to do to get this enacted is sign it.
And you can
Are you
amend,
twisting my arm?
I'm not twisting your arm, I'm just basically saying, this already says what you're specifying. It just doesn't
Okay, so the
Push it.
chief of police is actually gonna go in there and make sure that they're all tip certified, and then we can,
I would hope that from time to
Okay.
time,
he will?
he or I, or we will request that he bring it into the office.
Yeah,
Or any one
I'm
of
just
us.
as interested in this item because it's, again, in my, as a citizen of Templeton and really being concerned about this situation, it's about buying down risk. If we do have an establishment that is serving alcohol and what happened is a risk, then we as a community must help Mr. Arsenault reduce the risk for public safety.
Right.
So making sure that they're tip certified in clear language, I agree. So,
Okay.
and every single one of these is enforceable. I know that some of them talk about like the chief walking in within 30 days, but enforceability for this one, either they are or they're not.
Well, I wanna be clear about the door situation too, that, that it's not that that it's to be used as an emergency exit only, not just the alarm for the door hanging
Yeah.
open. It's only to be used as
It's
an emergency.
specified.
Yep,
It's
in two,
specified in there.
in two,
Right.
yeah, items 4
Well,
and 5.
Carter had said, just to make sure that the alarm goes off if it's just kinda hanging there. No, anytime that somebody uses that door.
Yep,
Item 7, in fact, does essentially call upon the chief to go in there
Okay.
and get that tips record log.
okay.
Because on September 1, he has to deliver to our office for your review, his certification, his attestation. They've either done these things or they haven't.
Okay.
Where are they? So you'll know come September 1. And you'll also have another bite at the apple, November, whenever your last meeting in November is, because they will be up for relicensing
Okay,
in fairly short order.
My
okay.
question is that enough, Mr. Chairman?
Is this?
Is that enough
Oh, that's
Yeah.
of that accountability? Or do we wanna put more
We
dates
can't.
in there, like?
I-
we first
Yeah, that
did
was
it-
in,
That was
we
prior
bought
to
the
it.
farm already,
Okay.
and I know that the board had to go through some additional pain with that. This is what it is. This is basically us signing the agreement to say, now it shall be done. So we weren't the jury at the time. We're now executing what the previous board had decided in that hearing.
And may I ask a question of the
course.
previous board, Diane and Julie, we had a moment of silence for Ryan?
Perhaps we can
I
put that on
believe
the
that-
next agenda.
What?
Have we ever done that?
Let's,
We can't do that.
we can
could.
discuss, we could discuss it offline. but I understand your sentiment. Mr. Terenzini, I'm sorry, go on. Item 8.
8 basically says that as long as they hold an alcohol restaurant license with the town, this is effectively an addendum to that license.
Yep.
And so when it's renewed annually, our suggestion is going to be that the face of the license also refer to this settlement agreement.
I understand.
Paragraph 9 says that they have given up all rights of appeal to the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission or any other court or anybody. So there's nothing they can do. This
Yep.
is now a done matter. And then 10 and 11 are basic legal boilerplates.
Now, Mr. Arsenault has signed this. Was that on advice of his counsel, and
Yes.
the council
Yeah,
doesn't need to sign it?
He
or
had
anything?
counsel, and once someone has counsel and we know about it, we can only communicate through their counsel. So all the conversations were between
Yep.
town council and Mr. Arsenault's counsel. I'm afraid I can't remember his name now.
So I'm satisfied with this, the settlement agreement that would, and should we get a motion in a second, and it'd be on the 29th day of May.
Yes.
I make a motion to approve the agreement with Trestle Bridge LLC as presented.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Motion for the settlement agreement has been seconded. Any further discussion?
I would just like it to be noted that I would like the chief to be on top of this agreement and to explore further adding on Thursday evening coverage at their front door.
As Mr. Terenzini said he would. Okay,
Just want to go on record to say that.
I understand. Any further discussion on the settlement agreement motion? Hearing nothing further on the motion to approve the settlement agreement with the Trestle Bridge LLC, the Thirsty Turtle. How do you vote, Jeff?
Yes.
Terry?
Yes, with Julie's notes.
Julie?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Mr. Chairman, when does that 30 days start for the renewal? Is that as of tonight, would you approve this?
It would have to be, because that's the language right at the top. It's,
I
yeah,
just wanna make sure.
yeah,
it's
29, if it's gonna get signed the 29th day, or maybe it takes effect at midnight, maybe it's the 30th day of May, but effectively, yes, with that vote. Okay,
We'll circulate a copy of it to both chiefs once it's fully
Okay.
signed by the board.
Item 8B, board and staff member comments and reports. That's open if someone needs to, has an item that's not on the agenda. I'll go ahead and start off. I don't know if anyone else has anything. I'm looking forward to my time. I may not have thought I was going to be the chair. I didn't think that was a given, but I'm ready to execute the duties as the chair, and I'm really looking forward to working. I may be the chair, but I feel like I'm part of the board. I know most of you. Terry, I'm gonna get to know you on the board, but I have to say, I'm looking forward to the next 3 years. I'm looking forward to the cycle that I think that we've gotten very good at, budget-wise and policy-wise. I think we're headed in the right direction. We've got a hiccup right now. That's our, as they say in the Army, it's our 25-meter target. We gotta knock that one down first. And I think that's what the public is looking for us to do. They're gonna be watching tonight. This is our first go-around. I've sat on another board, and I hope to bring that experience with you, but I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to congratulate all 3 of the new members. It's a pretty huge change. I hope that everyone has watched what we've previously done on the prior board and continue to support the fact that we would like to continue to go forward, never backwards, with the board and with the town of Templeton, because I think that we've come a long way, and I just support you all, and if you have any questions, please reach out, and don't do it in a large format, because then it will be questionable.
Right.
So if you wanted to reach out to myself, or I would assume Diane, at any time, we are here to support you, and we welcome you, and once we get past this hiccup or gas or whatever we might refer it, we should be good. So welcome.
Thank you, Julie.
I have the same sentiments. I mean, Jeff has been on the advisory committee and Mike's been around, but Terry, if you have any questions about some background, I know it must be a really overwhelming to sit in that seat right now and not understand like all of the past and have all these questions, but I'm happy to sit with you and go through, you can go through meeting minutes and read through some of those, but like Julie said, I'm happy to
Appreciate
help
it.
out.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
No problem.
Jeff, is
Yes.
this Groundhog Day for you?
Yeah, it just goes round and round. I'd just like to follow up on Ms. Thomas's concern or whatever, or his thoughts on the override. Back in 13, we were in the same situation with the school budget, and it had been turned down at an annual town meeting and 2 special town meetings. It went to a joint meeting. And on that joint meeting floor, the school committee came in, the number that they had already dropped a little, they made an amended motion to lower it even a little farther. And it was approved, however you agree with how it was done or not, but it was approved at that joint meeting. And the decision was made to try for an override again, even though the school budget had failed 3 previous times. That October in 2013, I was a member of the Board of Selectmen, and Templeton was one of, I think it was 7 or 9, but I believe it was 7 communities that went for an override in that month in the state, and Templeton was the only one that passed it. So to your concern, or to your point that it's, once the school committee sets another budget, whether it's the same, lower, or higher, there is still the chance that instead of decimating the town, that the people will change their mind, and the vote can go the other way. And we also, in that summer, the Board of Selectmen held 3 informational meetings telling the people, if we cut the town, this is what it's gonna look like. If we do the override, the amount that we had at that time, this is what your taxes would look like, this is what the impact would look like. And like I said, it doesn't mean it's, right now it looks, bad, it's gonna be hard for the town, but it can always turn around. And that year it did. And hopefully we come to we get a number set quick. I don't know if we're gonna be able to avoid the 1/12, but the town's been down that road before, and I think there's 5 members of the school committee that were on the committee when we went down that road in 13. So we're not necessarily gonna have to chop the town and go backwards. It's still, when the vote happens, the vote happens. So it's still a shot that it could happen like it did in 13. So just to address some of your thoughts, what you had stated. So.
Thanks,
other than
Jeff.
that, that's it.
Thanks, Jeff. Any other board member comments? Mr. Terenzini, do we have executive session this
I
evening?
sent the board, particularly the new members, the tentative agreement on highway, and a brief status on the others. If they wish an executive session to discuss it, if they have any questions, certainly we could do that. Or if they just have some questions, they can see me one-on-one. But I don't have any need for an executive session
Okay.
this evening otherwise.
I'm all set. I don't have a need to go into executive session. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Jeff? All those who wish to adjourn, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.